Jungkook caught on camera at the airport. Is this a sign of a secret BTS project without the other members? Why was Jungkook traveling alone? That single question exploded across social media the moment short fan-taken videos began circulating online, showing Jungkook walking through the airport without any visible BTS members beside him. No group formation.
No familiar lineup.
Just Jungkook, calm, focused, moving forward with quiet purpose. And for a fandom trained to read meaning in every detail, this was not just a casual sighting, it was a signal. Within minutes, speculation ignited. Was this a solo schedule? A fashion shoot? A music project? Or something far more provocative? A BTS-related project that does not involve all 7 members. Fans began replaying the footage obsessively. His outfit, his expression, the lack of entourage, the absence of staff usually associated with group activities. Nothing looked accidental. Everything looked deliberate, and deliberateness always invites theory. Some fans pointed to the timing. BTS is actively preparing for a major 2026 comeback. Group activities are expected to be tightly coordinated. In that context, Jungkook traveling alone feels unusual. Not impossible, but unusual enough to raise eyebrows. Why move separately during such a critical phase? One theory suggests a solo collaboration tied to international partners, possibly linked to fashion or music, continuing the momentum from his Rolling Stone and Calvin Klein moments. Another theory is more dramatic. A side project connected to BTS's comeback that requires secrecy, limited personnel, and tight information control. And then there is the theory fans whisper but hesitate to say too loudly. What if this project is connected to BTS, but intentionally excludes some members? Not permanently, not as a split, but as a strategic experiment of BTS has always evolved through phases, subunits, solo projects, cross-collaborations. But the idea of a BTS-branded project driven primarily by one member is enough to shake expectations. That is why the footage feels charged. Jungkook did not look hurried. He did not look stressed. He looked composed, as if stepping into something he already understands. That calm only fuels the mystery. If this were a routine schedule, fans argue, it would not feel this quiet. Silence, in BTS history, often comes before announcements, and fans remember that pattern well. ARMY timelines quickly divided into camps. Some insisted this is simply a personal or solo commitment and should not be overinterpreted. Others argued that ignoring patterns is how surprises slip past unnoticed. BTS rarely does anything without intention, and Jungkook rarely moves without narrative consequence. The most intriguing detail is not what was seen, but what was missing: an official statement, an clarification, an denial. In the BTS universe, silence is never empty. It is usually preparation. What is Jungkook preparing for? A solo project that will stand apart from BTS. A secret collaboration tied to the group's next era? Or a narrative twist no one has predicted yet? Right now, there are no answers. Only footage. Only questions. Only the image of Jungkook moving alone through an airport, carrying more speculation than luggage. And until something is announced, one truth remains. This was not just a fan sighting. It was a spark. And in the world of BTS, sparks rarely stay small for long. Silence as strategy. Why Jungkook's solo airport appearance feels too intentional to ignore in ordinary celebrity culture. Being seen alone at an airport means very little. Schedules change. Logistics shift. Privacy matters. But BTS has never existed inside ordinary rules. Every movement is read, archived, compared to history. And history is what makes this moment feel heavier than it looks. Because fans have seen this pattern before major announcements. There is often distance. Before big reveals, there is often quiet. Before narratives change, there is usually a moment that feels small until it isn't. Jungkook walking alone through an airport fits that pattern too perfectly. What unsettled fans was not just that he was alone. It was how he was alone. There was no confusion in his body language. No visible stress. No rushed energy. He moved like someone following a plan, not improvising one. That calm is dangerous for speculation. Calm suggests preparation. Preparation suggests intention. and intention suggests something is already decided. Some fans began revisiting old timelines. Moments when members traveled separately before surprise releases. Solo schedules that later connected back to group projects. Quiet periods that exploded into global announcements. The conclusion many reached was not certainty, but suspicion. If Jungkook is moving alone right now, it is likely because whatever he is doing cannot be seen too early, and secrecy is rarely used for something small. One theory gaining traction is that this is tied to a pre-production phase of a major project. Not filming, not promotion, but groundwork, meetings, negotiations, creative direction, things that require presence, but not publicity. Another theory is even more provocative. What if this is a test? A test of how the public reacts to seeing Jungkook operate independently during a period when BTS is expected to act as a unit. A test of perception. A test of flexibility. A test of how narratives shift when one member steps slightly ahead of the formation. Not to leave it, but to stretch it. BTS has always evolved by challenging expectations. When people thought they would rest, they created. When people expected sameness, they diversified. When people fear division, they proved expansion. The idea that Jungkook could be exploring something that does not visibly include all members is not betrayal. It is evolution. Still, fans are careful. They do not want to jump to conclusions. They remember how easily speculation can turn into anxiety. That is why many are watching quietly, collecting signs instead of declaring outcomes. But the feeling remains. This was not random. If it were random, it would have passed quickly. Instead, it stayed. It lingered in timelines, in comments, in theories. People kept returning to the same question. Why now? Why alone? Why silent? Because silence, in the BTS universe, has always been meaningful, and Jungkook, more than most, understands how narrative works. He knows when presence speaks louder than statements. He knows when movement itself becomes a message. Right now, the message is unclear, but the tension is real, and tension only exists when something is about to move. Whether this leads to a solo project, a secret collaboration, a BTS-related twist, or something no one has imagined yet, one thing is certain. That airport moment was not the story, it was the opening line. And in the world of BTS, opening lines are always followed by something that changes how the whole story is read, the calm before the reveal. Why fans believe Jungkook's solo trip is only the first signal as hours turned into days. The airport footage refused to fade from memory. It was reposted, slowed down, zoomed in, analyzed frame by frame. Not because fans wanted to invade privacy, but because in the BTS universe, movement has always meant meaning, and this movement felt unfinished. What made it more unsettling was the lack of follow-up. No staff photos. No leaks from insiders. No casual confirmations from industry circles. When things are normal, something always slips out. When things are carefully protected, everything goes quiet. And right now, everything is quiet. That silence has made fans uneasy in the most exciting way. Because BTS has trained its audience to recognize the rhythm of mystery. First comes the unexplained moment. Then comes the waiting. Then comes the reveal that makes everything suddenly make sense. Jungkook walking alone feels like step one. Some fans have begun calling it the decoy moment. The kind of sighting meant to be seen but not understood yet. Visible enough to spark attention, vague enough to mislead. If there is a project in motion, this could be the outer layer of it, the part meant to drift into public view without exposing the core. And the core, whatever it is being protected fiercely. Others believe the key lies in timing. BTS is in a sensitive phase. Post-military, pre-comeback, post-solo success, pre-group redefinition. Every move now carries weight. Jungkook traveling alone during this phase is not neutral. It is either strategic separation or necessary preparation. Either way, it is intentional. There is also the emotional layer fans cannot ignore. Jungkook has spoken about longing during his military service, about ideas that had nowhere to go, about wanting to return better than before. That kind of mindset does not settle quietly. It looks for outlets. It searches for form. Could this trip be where that form begins to take shape? If so, the project might not be something announced loudly. It might be something built slowly behind closed doors, until it is too complete to hide. BTS has always preferred impact over noise. They let anticipation do the work. That is what is happening now. Fans are not demanding answers. They are preparing for them, watching patterns, remembering past cycles, trusting that whatever this is, it will eventually connect back to something larger. Because with BTS, nothing exists in isolation for long. Even solo moments often return to the group narrative. Even quiet moves usually echo later in public milestones. Jungkook's solo airport appearance may look like separation, but it could easily become the first thread in a much bigger design. And that is why the footage still matters. Not because it proves anything, but because it promises something. IT tells fans that motion has begun. That preparation is happening somewhere out of sight. That a story is being written before anyone is allowed to read it. For now, there is only the image of Jungkook walking forward alone, calm and unbothered, as if he already knows what everyone else is still trying to guess. And in the world of BTS, when one member knows something the world does not, it usually means the world is about to find out. Just not yet. When one step leads many. Why Jungkook's solo move may redefine the next BTS era as the silence stretches. Something else begins to grow. Expectation, not the loud kind, not the chaotic kind, but the heavy kind, the kind that sits in the chest and waits. Fans are no longer asking if something is happening. They are asking what shape it will take, because too many signs now point in the same direction. Jungkook does not move randomly. His career has never been driven by impulse. Every shift, from solo music to brand alliances to military return, has followed a pattern of timing so precise it almost feels engineered. Which makes this airport moment impossible to dismiss as coincidence. If this were merely a personal trip, it would already have been forgotten. But it hasn't been, because deep down, fans understand something. BTS does not build eras overnight. They build them quietly, in pieces, through movements that only make sense later. Jungkook walking alone may not mean separation. IT may mean initiation. Initiation of a new structure. A new rhythm. A new way BTS tells its story in the post-military era. For years, BTS functioned like a constellation, 7 lights moving together, shaping one image. But constellations do not disappear when one star moves. They change shape. They form new meanings. What if this is the beginning of that reshaping? Not loss, not division, but evolution. What if Jungkook's solo movement is not about leaving the formation, but about stretching it outward, testing how far the narrative can expand without breaking? That would explain the silence. You don't explain experiments while they're still fragile. You don't announce blueprints before the structure can stand. You let it grow quietly. Fans sense this instinctively. That is why there is tension but not panic. Curiosity, but not fear. Because BTS has never abandoned its own story. It only deepens it, and Jungkook, more than anyone, understands how emotion works in this universe. He knows how absence creates longing. He knows how mystery creates meaning. He knows how a single unexplained moment can hold attention longer than 1,000 announcements. Right now, that airport footage is doing exactly that. IT is holding the world in a pause before something changes. Whether this leads to a secret collaboration, a solo chapter tied to BTS's next era, a special project bridging group and individual identity, or something no one has imagined yet. One thing feels certain. This is not an ending. That IT feels like a hinge at a point where the story can swing in a new direction. And Jungkook, walking alone through that airport, may have just been opening the door, without telling anyone what's on the other side. The hinge moment. Why fans believe history will trace back to that one airport walk. Every long story has a hinge. A small moment that looks ordinary until everything that follows begins pointing back to it. For many fans, Jungkook walking alone through that airport already feels like that kind of moment. Not dramatic, not loud, just placed in time, placed in silence, placed right before a phase where BTS is expected to redefine itself after military service, solo eras, and years of global dominance. That is why people keep returning to it, not because it answers anything, but because it refuses to be. Empty. And pop culture, truly meaningless moments disappear quickly. They don't echo. They don't linger. They don't keep resurfacing in conversation days later. But this one did. because it sits at the edge of change. Fans are beginning to talk about it less as the airport video and more as the before. Before the announcement, before the reveal, before the era name, before the visuals, the music,